Hey guys and gals, today we're going to talk about author's purpose and examples support purpose. Now, if you think back to our first techniques and elements of fiction video, you'll remember that author's purpose, or the reason that they're writing, was one of the decisions that our author made. So let's just look at this more closely now that we've looked at those other techniques and elements and really see what an author does to get into and convey his purpose. So first, authors say to themselves, well, why am I writing this? What do I expect to accomplish with my readers? And why do I feel the need to include this paragraph or this setting or to have a character act this way? Those are all decisions that an author makes. And don't forget, this is just a few of many decisions that an author makes. So that makes us feel kind of bad for our author. I don't know about you, but he's all, more decisions? I should have been a dancer. So our author is kind of at the edge of his grasp of reality here because he has so many decisions to make just to write a piece of fiction. Makes you wonder why anybody wants to do it at all. Oh wait, I know, because it's rewarding. So there are a few purposes, there are a few big purposes an author might have in mind when he writes. Now these are big. This is what the reason that we talked about in the first video that we talked about. He sits down and he says, after writing this, I would expect that anybody reads it would be persuaded to, or would be entertained, or whatever that case may be. These are the biggies. They may be writing to persuade you, to entertain you, to instruct you, to describe to you. There are a ton of reasons that an author might be writing, and that's that big purpose. And let's take a look at some of those. A 5-paragraph essay where a student argues that people should recycle and not litter. Think about what that student is doing. Arguing. What is that? What purpose would that be? Psst. Delge says the answer is to persuade. Thank you, DOG. Next, we have a student's book report about the 4th novel in the Twilight series. Interesting. Well, if they're reporting on something, they're probably describing or explaining, maybe? I don't know. What does DOG say? Psst, the answer is explain. There's our purpose. An author who writes that book report, the purpose is to explain. Then we have the 4th novel in the Twilight series by Stephanie Meyer. What might her purpose have been when she sat down and wrote this novel? DOG says to entertain. And I agree with that, but I want to highlight this one for just a second. Now think about the Twilight series. One of the big things that comes to mind in the Twilight series is the fight good, evil, not so much good, maybe not so much evil, but definitely just sides in opposition. And at some point they have to come together to fight for a common good. Is there more to that than just the purpose to entertain? Can we read between the lines and maybe get some other purpose out of this particular series? Something that she might want to persuade us to think about? Maybe? Think about it, everybody. And finally, we have an encyclopedia entry about endangered animals and efforts to protect them. Well, we're getting information from there, so DOG says that the answer is to inform. That would have been the purpose there. So if you got those right, good job, everybody. Let's take a closer look, though, at how this looks in action. Facebook funeral for computer game enthusiast. Here's how this reads. It's a piece of fiction. Toledo. Zed Rigby, 65, a lifelong computer game enthusiast, died in his home in Toledo, Ohio last Monday. Oh, bye, Zed. Mr. Rigby leaves behind no family or actual friends, but a number of his virtual friends are now engaged in virtual grieving. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Several of Zed's Facebook friends have taken the time to like his funeral page. A few have even added comments including, "Condolences, man, Zed's dead, and so sorry, dude." Rigby's demise has also not gone unnoticed on Twitter. "I'm sitting Shiva for Zed," tweeted Mary Yablanovich at More Waste, a fellow World of Warcraft enthusiast and Rigby's closest virtual friend. What are we seeing a lot of there? It seems a lot like sarcasm, but what this is actually called is satire. And satire, the purpose of satire is to really shed light in a comical or ridiculous way on ridiculous social habits or norms. So what should we have gotten from this particular passage? We should have understood that this man died. He was a lifelong game enthusiast. And where did all of his condolences come from? Where has technology gotten us in this world? He has no family or actual friends. But other of his virtual friends are now engaged in virtual grieving. This is our world of technology. And how did they honor him? They liked his funeral page and added a few comments. So you see here that satire is a purposeful kind of sarcasm meant to shed light. So the purpose of writing this author said, you know, I find it absolutely ridiculous that this world relies so much on technology. We have no personal connections anymore. So that was his purpose in writing this. I am going to write in such a way as to make my readers see what I'm talking about with this whole technology thing. But an author might also make decisions about smaller things within a passage. Which paragraphs to include and what purpose they'll serve. What characters to include and what purpose they'll serve. What role the setting will play in his story, using a flashback or foreshadowing, and so much more. You're killing me, man. I think if I show you all one more slide that says, and so much more, you might actually kill me. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Let's take a look now at The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. Now, this is actually a piece of literature. It's a very small portion of it, though. Every afternoon as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. Okay. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. How happy we are, they cried to each other. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend the Cornish ogre and had stayed with him for 7 years. After the 7 years were over, he had said all that he had to say, for his conversation was limited, and he determined to return to his own castle. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. Dun, dun, dun. Well, what's going on here? Where I want your focus right now is on that center paragraph. You see it here? This center paragraph. So we know that there's a giant. We learn that here. We know that there are school kids coming home from school. We learn that here. And we know the giant is coming back. What is the purpose of this paragraph? If I said to you, what was the purpose of Oscar Wilde including this paragraph in his story? You would look it over and say, well, if I was Oscar Wilde and I had to make a decision, I would want to describe the garden. So Oscar Wilde's purpose for including this paragraph was to provide and describe the setting. There you go. So see, we have big purposes and we have little purposes like this one. Let's take a look at another one, The Huntsman by Anton Chekhov. Now this, y'all, has a lot. Whoa, 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 lady, back it up. This is a lot, so let's just take it piece by piece. A sultry, stifling midday, not a cloudlet in the sky. The sun-baked grass had a disconsolate, hopeless look. Even if there were rain, it could never be green again. The forest stood silent, motionless, as though it were looking at something with its treetops or expecting something. What did that just set up for us? What do we have a picture of in our mind? Seems like a setting to me, doesn't it? So why did the author include that? If you were the author, you would have made a decision. You would have said, I need to provide a setting for this story. So I'm going to provide this paragraph, and the purpose of this paragraph is to give the readers a setting. At the edge of the clearing, a tall, narrow-shouldered man of 40 in a red shirt and patched trousers that had been a gentleman's and in high boots was slouching along with lazy, shambling step. He was sauntering along the road. On the right was the green of the clearing. On the left, a golden sea of ripe rye stretched to the very horizon. What are we seeing here? We're seeing a description of this character, and it's pretty detailed. So we don't even have to read the rest of this to say, wow, Anton Chekhov really wanted me to get a pretty good description of this character. So what was his purpose in including this paragraph? You got it. To describe this character. So it seemed like there was a whole lot going on there, but actually this was just a decision purposely to set up the setting and to set up a description of this main character. So in review, authors have a big purpose, but they also include certain paragraphs, characters, settings, stylistic effects, etc. to serve very specific purposes within their story. Basically, if you understand that an author makes decisions when he writes, you'll be able to read anything, and answer the questions. Why did he do that? What was his purpose? Y'all got this. I promise you. And that brings us to the end. I'll see y'all in class.